Chapter 14. Letting go of the fear. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Reynold Nebar. Sometimes I wonder how I managed to survive physically and mentally when we left the hospital and went home with Blair and Regan. Neil had recently started a job, which meant he was only home with me and the boys for 2 days. Yep, that was the total of our parental leave requirement together, and it was all hands to the pump for me. Literally. As Regan could not suckle or attach himself to the breast for the first 6 weeks, I hired an electric breast pump so I could express my breast milk for Regan, then transfer it to the bottle. I had hoped that I could continue this for a longer period of time. However, expressing milk, then feeding Regan, then breastfeeding Blair was becoming unmanageable. How so? For the first 4 months of our busy family life, it would take me about 10 to 20 minutes to feed Blair and 60 to 90 minutes to feed Regan. I juggled this feeding routine by feeding Blair first from one breast while jiggling Regan in the bounce net with my foot, then swap them over. Then I would give Regan a quarter of his bottle, wind and burp him, then put him back in the bounce net, then finish feeding Blair on the other breast, put him in the bounce net, then take as long as it took with Regan. It was quite a system that I created, but it worked. Doing this, it meant I had no babies crying to be fed. To assist Regan with feeding, Regan was fitted with a plastic mouth plate that covered the roof of his mouth. This required a fortnightly trip into the dental school to have a mould taken off his mouth to make the plate, then another trip back in the next day or two to collect it. There were only 2 occasions where the mould impression wasn't precise enough, which resulted in a loose plate. This meant it had to be redone, which required another trip back into the dental school. The reason this needed to be done every 2 weeks was due to Regan growing and his mouth changing. If this wasn't done, it would be a bit like having a pair of false teeth without the teeth rattling around in your mouth. Once Regan was 6 months old, he would have his first surgery, which involved closing the lip and fixing the nose. It was a matter of digging deep and doing what needed to be done. It was a very busy time. Would I do it all over again? In a heartbeat. But the lack of sleep and exhaustion did take its toll. Scared of losing one or both twins. One of the biggest fears after losing a child is the thought of it happening again. You know and have experienced how fragile life is. In the blink of an eye, your entire world, your whole reason for living, that was my reason for living at that time, can be ripped away from you. This is how I felt. I just wanted to be a mum. I tried not to focus on my fear, but it was always there, hovering at the back of my mind. To be honest, for the first 10 months of Blair and Regan's life, I put a mental wall up to protect myself. I wanted to be engaged and close as a mum, but not too close, if that makes any sense. I attended to the needs of my babies. I sang to them, I told them about their big sister, I took them for walks in the pram, but I couldn't emotionally attach myself to them. Unconsciously, I was letting fear run my life. I thought the minute I absolutely absorbed every bit of these boys, something tragic would happen. I felt so blessed to have them both, and yet I felt that it was too good to be true. I know now that this is a normal reaction to my experience with Emma, because trauma is the lasting effects of emotional shock. You're not only dealing with the effects of trauma, but you're also dealing with past experiences that can affect your thinking, the difference between you knowing you deserve to be happy and knowing you are worthy of happiness. Blair would always sleep longer than Regan, and if Blair hadn't woken up within half an hour of Regan, I would always think the worst. I would brace myself as I walked into their bedroom, always expecting to find Blair dead. I had to find a way for this to stop, as it was ruining me physically and emotionally. Adding to my catastrophizing was a memory of an English assignment that was given to our class when I was 11 years of age at school. The teacher gave us a scenario that if we were in the car with our parents and 2 other siblings and we crashed into a ravine and we had the chance to save only one member, who would it be and why? I know what you're thinking. What? This scenario troubled me greatly, given the fact that regular trips were required by myself with 2 helpless babies to and from either the dental school or Dunedin Public Hospital. I was a very cautious driver, and if anyone appeared to be in a hurry, I gave them a wide berth. I knew that if I were to be in a car accident, I may only be able to help one of my babies. These gorgeous babies were here with me now, and the thought of losing one, I felt that would be the end of me. So my way of dealing with my fear at the time was to disconnect emotionally from them. This was my way of coping back then. I just didn't think I could survive the loss of another child. A new perspective. I thought that by disconnecting myself emotionally from the boys, I was protecting myself from further hurt, and that it was a clever tactic. What I failed to realise was that while I was disconnected from my emotions, I was also missing out on the joy of each milestone that should have been celebrated. I cannot remember precisely what day it was, but I caught myself laughing while the 2 of them were interacting with each other in their jolly jumpers. They love being in their jolly jumpers. They used to get upset if I unstrapped the harness from the spring before they were finished jumping or twirling around. I had set the jolly jumpers up so that they were facing each other in the doorways and could watch each other bouncing up and down. This would set them off giggling at each other. While they were giggling, they were also doing these little moves with their feet, as if they were puppets performing in the Irish River dance. And the more they laughed at each other, the more they pointed their toes. They used their feet to push off the ground, to spin, wriggle and bounce. It was just hilarious. They were laughing and I was laughing. Their eyes were sparkling. They were so happy. They were laughing at me laughing. I started laughing harder, to the point where the tears of laughter were running down my face. I felt so happy. I had a warmth running through my body. I had caught myself off guard. My boys were talking gibberish to each other. I had stopped laughing, so they were trying to make me laugh again. It just occurred to me that I had just experienced the biggest aha moment. I knew from this day forward that I could not shut down my emotions any longer. I realised I had 2 choices. I could continue to protect myself or allow myself to become vulnerable, to lean into what I had, to appreciate these 2 little humans and enjoy each moment of each day. I was worrying about something that may never happen, and I couldn't control it anyway. I had to let go of the fear. What I also didn't realise was how much energy it was taking from me to be in this mind state. It was scary to let go, but Dr. Bezel van der Kolk in his book, The Body Keeps the Score, says regarding this matter, if we are stuck in survival mode, its energies are focused on fighting off unseen enemies, which leaves no room for nurture, care and love. As long as the mind is defending itself against invisible assaults, our closest bonds are threatened along with our ability to imagine, plan, play, learn and pay attention to other people's needs. We must accept that we cannot control life. We can plan, but unforeseen circumstances can and will happen to anyone at any time. The trouble is, until you've been touched by the effects of death, you take life for granted. And as my teacher said right at the beginning of this book, we never know what is around the corner. The issue is how many of us are taught the how of life skills if we were to encounter such an event. The boys were a lot of work, but they were such fun. People would make the comment when they saw us together, "Oh no, double trouble." And I would say, "Oh yes, double cuddles." We were content to just have our 2 boys until they started school. We decided to try for another baby. We were blessed with 2 more children. Mitchell Scott King was born on the 29th of December 1998, and Charlotte Rose King was born on the 18th of September 2000. However, little did we know that we would be hit with another curveball in February 2002.